This video essay aims to understand the Spratly Islands dispute and analyze Philippines' approach towards the issue vis-à-vis China from a neorealist lens. The Spratly Islands dispute is an ongoing territorial conflict between China, Taiwan, the Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam and Brunei over the ownership of the Spratly Islands. The Spratly Islands, constituting a group of over 750 reefs and small islands, are situated in the South China Sea, which is one of the largest continental shelves in the world and is abundant in resources such as oil, natural gas, minerals, and seafood. Claims to the various islands of Spratlys began in the 1930s when France first occupied the archipelago. During World War II, Japan displaced France and controlled the region by using it as a submarine base. After the war, both France and Japan relinquished the islands. It was only in 1969, after the discovery of oil in the region and the 1970 global oil crisis, that the islands became crucial for the claimant nations. About 45 islands are occupied by relatively small numbers of military forces from China, Malaysia, the Philippines, Taiwan, and Vietnam. Along with being abundant in oil, the region around the Spratly Islands is the busiest maritime line in the world as it links the Pacific Ocean with the Indian Ocean. A statistical evaluation conducted in 2016 revealed that maritime tradeways of the region hosted one-third of global trade worth $3.4 trillion US. Thus, the Spratly Islands are of strategic importance to the countries. Additionally, for the Philippines, the islands are also important for fisheries as its economy is dependent on fishing. Among all countries, the Philippines seem to have a stronger legal claim over some of the Spratly Islands as they fall within its exclusive economic zone under a distance of 200 nautical miles from its baseline. The major opposition to the Philippines comes from China, who claims ownership of all Spratly Islands as it considers the South China Sea region as an extension of its continental shelf. To back this claim, China has also constructed military bases and has built artificial structures on the Spratly Islands. Considering China's rapidly growing economy and military strength, along with its military intimidation and expansionist policies in the area, it becomes important to study the approach of the relatively smaller state Philippines, whose economy, military, and navy are not at par with that of China. Until 1990, there was no significant military conflict between the Philippines and China over the Spratly Islands. However, in 1992, China began installing sovereignty markers on various shoals and islets in the Spratlys, but this action was curbed by the declaration on the South China Sea by the ASEAN. In 1995, China resumed its expansionist policy over the Spratly Islands when the Chinese troops occupied Mischief Reef, which was being occupied by the Philippines. This act escalated disputes by straining bilateral relations, but without resulting in a military confrontation. When vice ministerial talks were conducted to resolve the dispute bilaterally, no concrete agreements were reached. The Philippines also tried to make the Spratly Islands dispute an international issue by filing a case against China at the World Maritime Tribunal, which was rejected by China. On 22nd January 2013, the Republic of the Philippines instituted arbitral proceedings against the People's Republic of China. However, China adopted a position of non-acceptance and non-participation in the proceedings. The Philippines is therefore looking forward towards the United States for some help against China as the situation in the South China Sea region evolves. Current President Duterte, who has sought a closer relationship with China, has been criticized for not taking a tougher line on the country's South China Sea activities. But after increased Chinese activities in the exclusive economic zone, they have firmly asked Beijing to back off, while increasing military patrolling around the islands.
Analyzing the Philippine approach to the issue. In the neorealist paradigm, the organizing principle of international structure is anarchy, and the structure is defined in terms of states. Hence, states as unitary rational actors existing in a self-help system. States perpetually feel threatened by a potential attack from others. This creates mistrust between the states. Philippines can also be seen as neorealist, with threatening military retaliation between the lines and severely mistrusting China. China formally established a garrison in the region and gave it a city status in 2012. China stated that the move was made to support local emergency and disaster relief as well as carrying out military mission. The move was highly criticized as a way to raise tensions in the region by Philippines. Philippines later went so far as to say that the country would never back down from a territorial dispute with China. Furthermore, the president followed it by announcing the procurement of over 40 military aircraft with delivery dates over the following 2 years to strengthen the Philippine defense. The same year, a presidential decree was made proclaiming that the exclusive economic zone belonging to the Philippines and the incorporating Philippine claims of the Spratly Islands to no longer be called South China Sea but rather the West Philippine Sea. By doing so, he effectively shows that the Philippines considered this territory to be within their full legal jurisdiction. The Philippines shows in this instance a clear mistrust in the other states while trying to solidify their grasp on the claim. A neorealist assessment of the capability of a state is determined by its natural resource endowment, its demographic, economic, military, and technological capacity. Within the international system, they are differentiated via the level of capability. Since no one can ever feel entirely secure in such a world of competing units, competition ensues and the vicious circle of security and capability accumulation is on. Philippines' position is militarily weak. Hence, it has been modernizing its military equipments and has also resorted to increased military patrolling near the islands in the recent times. Defensive realist states, as put forth by Kenneth Walsh, are the states whose goal is to seek security and not maximize power. The actions are based on survival and are non-expansionary in nature. Philippines has avoided confrontations with China in the past over human rights issues, and even after the 1995 Mischief Reef incident, the two countries subsequently agreed on a code of conduct that stressed peaceful settlement of disputes. In September 1996, they announced an agreement to swap defense attaches. The same year, Jiang was the first Chinese head of the state ever to visit the Philippines, and both the leaders agreed to settle the Spratly dispute by peaceful means, but neither side backed down from their territorial claims. According to neorealists, states seek relative gains over absolute gains. Walls argued that domestic and international politics can be separated into two separate levels of phenomena. A change in the level of economic interdependence does not necessarily mean a change in the number of conflicts over territorial disputes. Thus, a country's territorial actions or claims are independent of their economic relations. In the case of Philippines and China, each of these countries have backed their military powers in their claim to certain parts of the islands situated in the South China Sea. However, in the terms of their economic relationship, these states are willing to engage in joint ventures like oil exploration, confidence-building measures, and other diplomatic means. There is no correlation between the territorial disputes and trade. While neorealist approach explains Philippines' defense strategy, it does not necessarily describe its legal and institutionalized approach to solving the dispute, such as filing an arbitration, seeking support from the UN and the ASEAN. It hounds ASEAN to come up with a binding code of conduct to govern maritime activities in the South China Sea. More significantly, it has also filed a statement of claim against China in the arbitral tribunal of the UNCLOS. In doing so, it seeks a multilateral and legal solution to a maritime dispute that involves overlapping claims to the global commons. Furthermore, economic interdependence on China has also led Philippines to avoid diplomatic and military confrontation with China over the claims on Spratly Islands because of China's economic growth and large potential market share. Both the countries have the relations between both the countries have greatly improved, and the burgeoning economic ties between the two countries was a key factor for the same. Thus, the Philippines has opted for a two-track diplomatic strategy, a balancing policy predicated on increasing its capability and arms buildup, and a liberal legal approach that relies on the instrumentalities of regional organizations, the ASEAN, and international law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, to constrain an increasingly assertive China.